Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing Season 1 of Rivals. So, before I head into my thoughts and feelings on Season 1 of many more, I suppose, of Rivals, a quick disclaimer, I think I am probably going to have some spoilers in this particular video, so if you have not seen this show, you might want to steer clear and come back at a future point. So yeah, let's get going with my thoughts and feelings on Rivals. I definitely have a few kind of complicated feelings for the show, but in general, I did like it enough that I would be interested to see a second season. So this is what you need to know about Rivals. It is an 8-part series based on some very popular books, apparently, by Jilly Cooper. And this first season, when I was like looking through the series over on Goodreads, for instance, it looks like this season didn't even adapt the very first book in the book series. It adapted the second book, weirdly enough. And as far as where you can even watch this show, over here in America, you can watch it either on Hulu and I think Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. Or if you're in the UK, it's over on Disney Plus, of all places. Over here in America, on our Disney Plus, they wouldn't be caught dead showing this type of show on Disney Plus. So yeah, over in the UK, Disney Plus, y'all are crazy. So, as far as the plot of Rivals is concerned, let me look at my notes to make sure I'm covering what needs to be covered here. It starts in England in 1986, the year I was born, you guys, to let you know how old I freaking am. It's set in the cutthroat world of television and the rivalry between Rupert Campbell Black, Declan O'Hara, and Tony Battingham. Ooh. And boy oh boy, you guys, this show, woo, it is spicy, it is wild, it is sexy. Just looking at my notes again, because I just listed off all sorts of words here. It's a wild, raunchy romp of sex and debauchery, boardroom drama, politics, bored housewives, rich people drama, adultery, and television networking. This show, there is so much going on in this show. I was genuinely shocked, just episode after episode after episode while watching the show. I was just genuinely shocked how much was going on in this show, because watching the trailers for this show initially, it just looked like it was all going to be like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like the trailers, I feel like the trailers did not really show any of the actual plot, and there is actual plot going on in this show. There's more than just debauchery and bored housewives. And the best way to describe this show, and I don't mean this in a negative way by any means, I already told you guys I'm pretty old. This show is like the equivalent of something like Bridgerton, but Bridgerton for middle-aged people. And you know what? I'm not going to complain about that. There's plenty of shows on television right now that are specifically aimed for, teenagers and people in their 20s. And I feel like there's not a lot of shows out there targeted towards people like in their 30s and 40s and, even going way up to the 50s and 60s and 70s, There's not a lot of television out there for like older people, I feel like. So yeah, it's kind of refreshing to watch a show like this. Like I said, it's Bridgerton for middle-aged people. So how did I feel about the show? Like I kind of vaguely mentioned at the top of this video, I do have some kind of complicated, complex feelings for the show to a degree, but for the most part, I did enjoy it and I liked it enough and I had fun with it. I think my biggest issue with the show is probably the front half of the season, to be quite honest. I found myself, for whatever reason, in the front half of the season, I was occasionally a little bit bored and a little bit uninterested, and I just kind of kept waiting for the plot and the characters, the relationships. I just kept waiting for something to kind of happen and some sort of forward momentum. For me, I felt like the front half of the season almost felt like it was far more interested in just trying to be as as wild and sexy and crazy and as much debauchery as they could possibly show in, the first 4 episodes. And at times that kind of just wasn't really entirely appealing to me. It's like, okay, so and so, they're great looking, I like looking at them, but let's move this along. Enough of all this. I want some actual plot going on here. So I did. I honestly found the front half of the season to be a tad bit tedious on occasion, and I just wanted something to move forward, But I did really start warming up to the second half of the season. I feel like that's where a lot of the really good stuff started getting going, and a lot of the stuff that felt like it didn't really mean anything in the front half finally meant something in the second half. So yeah, I had a lot more fun with the second half. I had a lot more fun with the characters. And yeah, speaking of the characters, I just did not like a single damn character on this show, other than maybe someone like Taggy, you guys. I feel like Taggy is like the most relatable character on this show, weirdly enough. And it's like I liked her story, and like she was the most likable, the most interesting. I had the most like pity and sympathy for her on occasion. And Lizzie, I do need to mention Lizzie. Lizzie as well. Lizzie was another character that I just completely adored her, and I just felt so bad for her, some of the bullshit she was having to deal with. And that's kind of the thing with this show in some ways. A lot of these characters, the vast majority of these characters, I feel like they're deliberately not supposed to be very likable people. It's like you kind of like them to a degree. It's like you love to hate them, but a lot of them are kind of rather despicable for the most part, and I just had trouble kind of warming up to a lot of them. But like I said, I definitely loved the second half of the season. A lot of the scandals started making a lot more sense, becoming a lot more interesting. All the gossiping and craziness, who's hooking up with who. Yeah, the ambition, you start to see the ambition of all these characters finally coming out little by little and kind of putting their ambition more on display in interesting ways. And I think that I liked that this show was comedic. I think the show works best kind of being this, what would you call it, like a dramedy, if you will, that there's some drama, but kind of the comedy outweighs the drama at times, I feel like. But I really like that this show had a lot of wit and humor to it. I mean, for God's sake, it takes place in the mid-80s, for crying out loud. So it's like you gotta kind of poke fun at some of that and poke fun at some of the stereotypes. And I haven't even mentioned this yet, because I did mention that this is based off of a very popular book series, apparently. I have never heard of these books, you guys. Never even heard of these books until this show even came out, because my interest to even watch this show to begin with through actors Aidan Turner and David Tennant. I primarily watch this show for those two guys. Yeah, guys, I'm not even going to beat around the bush about that. So yeah, while people who have read the books have been online debating, the things that worked, the things that didn't work, the casting choices, I've just been watching it and enjoying it as a casual viewer, if you will. I did really quite like the overall look of the show. Once again, the show is rather comedic at times, and I like the vibrancy and color of the show. Again, there's so many shows out there that are just so heavily dark and angsty and gloomy. So yeah, to get a show like this, that is kind of more vibrant and colorful and playful, I'm always here for that sort of thing. As I mentioned as well, the show has a lot to do with, like, I guess, what would be the correct terminology? I guess television networking, I suppose. The politics of what goes on in television studios and how programs get made and who stars in those programs, I loved all of that drama with the studio and whatnot. And yeah, again, that rivalry that starts happening between characters like Declan O'Hara and Tony Battingham and Rupert Campbell Black, all three of them have their own individual ambitions and their roles and functions kind of within this television placement, so I did. I liked seeing all that really good drama and interaction with the TV network, and yeah, David Tennant, oh my god, just being a complete, like, tyrant. And speaking of David Tennant, you guys, because I'm going to start moving into, I guess, just the characters for right now, I was absolutely shocked how much I disliked David Tennant, you guys. Oh my god. David Tennant is usually an actor no matter what he's in, whether he's a good guy, whether he's a villain, David Tennant is always someone who he just exudes just this charm and charisma, and you really love his characters, even his villains. You know, like for example, his character of Kilgrave over on Jessica Jones, for instance, that Marvel Netflix show. I just freaking loved his character on that, as despicable and vile as he was on that show. But David Tennant, his performance with that villain just made me love that villain, you know? So, yeah, even when David Tennant is playing horrible, despicable human beings, just him as an actor, he just has that charisma, you know, that you love his performance. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just me, you all can tell me how you felt about David Tennant. I just did not like David Tennant on this show whatsoever. Not that it was a bad performance, you know, it certainly was not a bad performance whatsoever. I don't think David Tennant is capable of providing a bad performance, but I was kind of left wondering, was this a situation of David Tennant possibly being miscast for once in a weird way? I don't know. I'm very curious, other people, how you feel about David Tennant on this show. If you possibly felt it was a bit of a miscast, I don't know, because like I said, I usually always have no issues with him, and I love him in every single thing he is, but for whatever reason, just this wasn't doing it for me. And I just never quite knew how to feel about Tony Battingham and what the writers were trying to do with him, because the writers clearly wanted Tony to be the antagonist, to be the villain of this show. He's not meant to be likable, you know? Again, like I was mentioning, a lot of these characters are deliberately meant to be unlikable, horrible people. And yeah, he's definitely one of those characters. And the writing would, on occasion, sit and try to give you a little bit of sympathy for him, for you to try to understand him. And sometimes that just was a bit of a hit or miss with me when they would try to kind of develop him out and explore him, because sometimes I just didn't care. It's like, he's a terrible person, I don't want to know other things about him to make me kind of sympathize with him, you know? Yeah, I didn't like how he treated his wife. I didn't even like how he treated Cameron Cook, you know? It's like he was having that affair with Cameron Cook and whatnot, and like, I never really even bought into their relationship. I never even understood why she was with him, what she found so appealing about him, and what he found so appealing about her, you know? Because I guess maybe their ambition, they both had driving ambition, and that's really the one thing that was kind of bringing them and tying them together. But yeah, it's like I never understood it entirely, and why they even bothered to like each other, you know? Yeah, he's just so terrible. Now, I did really highly love Declan O'Hara, you guys. It's Aidan Turner. Again, Aidan Turner is one of those actors as well that I just have never had an issue with. Aidan Turner, he's another actor who just has charisma just pouring out of every pore of his being, and I love him. So I had no problems with Aidan Turner in this show. This was like a really refreshing change of pace to see Aidan Turner in, because Aidan Turner has mostly kind of been playing the dashing, good-looking hero. That's kind of been his role and function in most things he's been in the past couple decades, I feel like. So it's kind of refreshing to see Aidan Turner in this show, where he's married, he's been married for a while, he has grown children, for crying out loud. Yeah, he's like a TV presenter, you know. A very wildly, vastly different role for Aidan Turner, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Just this whole different look to him, you know. I wasn't digging the mustache. Let's be real. I don't dig Aidan Turner when he has a mustache. Either give him a full beard or whatever, or shave it all off, but yeah, no to the mustache. But still, Aidan Turner, he's a good-looking, charming man. I love him to bits, and I love Declan O'Hara. Declan, just like every single freaking character on the show, Declan is full of his own personal ambitions, and he's a flawed human being as well. He's a workaholic. That's the big thing that I wrote here in my notes. He's definitely a workaholic, and he kind of neglects his family on occasion, you know, which ain't a good thing. Moving over to Rupert Campbell Black, which the internet has been all over the place about Rupert Campbell Black, because people either love the casting of Alex Hassel or they hate the casting of Alex Hassel. Rupert, as portrayed by Alex Hassel, I definitely took a lot of warming up to him as a character, because like, especially in those first couple episodes, the way he was treating the character of Taggy, for instance, I was like, oh dear God, is this supposed to be the main core relationship we're supposed to be rooting for? Because I don't like it whatsoever, because yeah, she is definitely young enough to be his daughter, and it felt a little weird. So I wasn't sure how I felt about that. And yeah, like at the dinner party, and he groped her, he groped her, and I'm like, this is supposed to be the core relationship we're supposed to be rooting for? I didn't like that. So it took me a while to really warm up to Rupert's character. And yeah, even the Taggy Rupert relationship, because by the time the season does end, weirdly enough, somehow I had a complete turnaround, and I was rooting for Rupert and Taggy to get together, as maybe inappropriate as I think it might be. I liked the slow burn of their relationship. Let me put it that way. I like the approach the writers took with telling the Rupert and Taggy relationship, because they clearly just don't really kind of get along initially, especially after the groping incident, and they are kind of polar opposites in some ways, but there is that weird attraction that they're kind of facing, that especially Taggy, that dilemma, like, yeah, he's a good looking guy, I'm attracted to him, I shouldn't be, yeah, he groped me, he's kind of a terrible bad person, he's a womanizer, I shouldn't fall into that, because we definitely get the idea that Taggy is a very independent, strong-willed, strong-minded woman, with, definitely thoughts of her own, and her own ambitions and career things that she wants to do. And yeah, Rupert is definitely not the type of guy she wants, is kind of the idea I was getting from her. But at the same time, it's like, the whole bad boy vibe, she kind of liked that whole thing. And the challenge, I think they both like the challenge that each of them represents to the other. And I liked the very, very slow burn approach that the writing was taking with Rupert and Taggy, because the show could have easily just thrown them in bed together immediately from the start, and that never happens. I kept waiting for it to happen, and it never did. And yeah, even by the finale, nothing of the sort goes down between them like that. So it kind of makes me really appreciative in hindsight how their relationship grew and developed over time. It makes me much more intrigued for their relationship in a second season and where that's going. Yeah, kind of just getting into a few other little things really quickly here, because I've been talking long enough as it is. I already mentioned how much I really like the character of Lizzie. Lizzie kind of made me think of like the Penelope character over on Bridgerton, for instance. I think Lizzie is very comparable to Penelope, and I kind of love that. Lizzie is just like the sweetheart of the show. This poor housewife, just kind of bored and lonely. She wants fun and excitement. Everybody else around her is having fun and excitement and having affairs, and she feels really guilty if she did something like that. So yeah, when her and Freddie finally got together, I was like, hell yes, you go, girl. We also have Luke Pasqualio. I can never pronounce that guy's name, you guys. He plays Baz, who is like the half brother to Tony's character. I loved that character as well. I do feel like he was very vastly underused. I almost feel like you could have written his character out, and it would have made no difference to anything going on. But yeah, I love that actor. I wish they just would have done more with him. I definitely had this love-hate relationship with Cameron Cook, played by Nafessa Williams. Definitely a strong love-hate relationship with her. I loved... The thing is, she was the only woman of color on the show. Let's be real. Was there anybody else on the show? There was hardly any other people of color on the show. She was pretty much it. So I loved her role there, and kind of what she stood for in the main context of the show. I love that she definitely, she's very outspoken. Let's put it that way. Cameron Cook, definitely a very outspoken woman. She's going to tell you what's on her mind. She's going to take no shit from any of the men, and yet she's in this position of power that's been held by men pretty much, and yet Tony giving her this opportunity to be in this great position of power. And yeah, she always has a voice throughout this entire show, which I liked. So I definitely had a love-hate relationship with Cameron Hook. I did really hate how Rupert used her when, oh god, I can't remember, were they in Italy, Spain, something like that? I can't remember where they were, but they were having like their little affair going off, and I did kind of hate how Rupert used her, but at the same time, it's like he was doing what he thought he needed to do, because, the rivalry going on between the television networks or whatever. So I did. I never quite knew how I felt about Cameron and Cook. I think I left the season liking her more than hating her. So yeah, to end this video, are we going to get a second season? I hope we do, because things were left in cliffhangers, because they definitely left Rupert and Taggy hanging open. Yeah, is Tony dead? Yeah, guys, did Cameron kill Tony right there at the end of the episode. I'm glad she kind of got some much needed revenge on him in a sense. I don't know if it needed to resort to possible murder, but yeah, I'm very curious. Is Tony dead? Is David Tennant not going to be on the next season, or is he going to be in a coma, or who knows? And yeah, Declan's wife up and left because she was kind of tired of all his bullshit. So we're going to get a new woman for Declan. You know, anything that takes off Aiden Turner's clothes, I'm not going to complain. So overall, I had fun with Rivals. I don't think it was perfect. I do think there was issues with the front half for me that felt a little tedious and slow. I just wanted things to get going, you know. Yeah, seeing people naked and having fun and going crazy, you know, that's all well and good for, you know, a little while, but after a while it kind of just gets kind of like you're just looking at your watch like, okay, I just want something to happen here. So yeah, I had fun with Rivals. I'm definitely anticipating a second season. I'm very curious how others enjoyed the show, especially if you're like a book reader. Like I said, I've not read the books, so I can't really commentate on that whatsoever, but if you've read the books, what did you love or hate? And yeah, anybody else looking forward to a season 2? So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on Rivals. In the comments below, have you seen the show? What did you think? Just let me know. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.